Hello there, camera. How are you doing today? I hope your camera day was fun and fantastic, because I care about you, camera, and I care about your day. So I'm talking to my camera, and I realize I have all these stories that I've always wanted to write down. I will never write them. I'll write notes and reminders that can pop up for years. But will I write them? No. Now that's a time issue, not a lazy issue. I have a pretty high energy and efficiency schedule, in case you can't tell by how hyper I am. If you give me coffee, woo, call the cops. So, I want to tell this story. I had a really funny memory the other day and was telling this story about, I was one of the first members of my family to have a cell phone. And I've made prank phone calls since the first time I could pick up the phone and tell someone a story and then say, I'm calling the cops. So, when I got my first phone, I called everyone. I just abused this thing to the high heaven. And I'm sure there was multiple police reports in multiple jurisdictions over my cell phone. So we were at I believe it was a Christmas dinner, because there was a lot of extended family there. And about 10, 15 people sitting around the table. Everyone's eating. And one of the things about me is if I do something really crazy or I play some crazy joke, I will never own it. Now there's two reasons for this. One, if it goes crazy wrong, you're responsible. And two, if it goes epically right, everyone will talk about this for the rest of their lives. Not, you engineered it, but they will think that it's this magical series of coincidences, if you will. So, we're at this dinner, everyone's there. I sneak off into the bathroom with my brand new fancy schmancy flip phone. Actually, I think it was like an old school Nokia that looked like a baby brick with keys. And I call my grandmother's house from the bathroom. And my aunt answers the phone. It's my grandmother's sister. She's probably in her 80s, real wholesome, like honest, God-fearing woman. Probably never said a cuss word in her life, very polite, answers the phone. Hello, this is Betty such and such at Mary such and such's house. And so when she says this, she says it really formal. And when I was young, I could imitate this really deep voice, like man's voice, big man. So I called her and I said, Betty, David Jenkins with the West Virginia State Police. She goes, oh my, it's the police. And it was really serious. I said, Betty, something important's happened. Betty, it's real important and I need you to tell everybody. And this is very important. It's a very, very serious life or death situation. And I would leave these epic pauses. And she goes, oh my dear, is everybody okay? And she's asking, she's going to form a prayer circle around the biscuits and gravy. So I tell her that a truckload of hamsters has flipped over on the highway and they're biting people, and I need her to make sure that everyone stays inside until we call back and say it's okay. I hang up the phone, I run back out to the table completely calm, not smiling, not looking at anyone. No one knows. So here we are around the table enjoying the Yuletide tradition, and she busts out and she says, Mary, that was the state police. And she tells everyone a truckload of hamsters flipped over and no one can go outside. Now this woman wouldn't know a joke if it hit her in the head. This joke went, like people were screaming, laughing, dropping food. I mean, it was everything shy of flipping chairs. And my grandmother is like, now that's ridiculous. So the first person that tries to go outside is, a distant cousin, goes to the door and she goes, get back in here! And like screams in a way where everybody's like this, and she goes, the state police said, and everybody kind of thinks that she has just become this master jokester or something, like can't believe, and she's dead serious. She's screaming, she goes nuts, and it's this tense, it was like a hostage situation. No one could leave, and we were trapped in the house, and it was magic. It was magic. It took 2 or 3 hours of strong arm negotiation to really calm her down and tell her that it wasn't the police. And every year, someone would always write in a Christmas card or something, about a truckload of hamsters. We would always tease her with that for the rest of her life. She loved it. It was really funny, and we laughed our asses off at that story. Story number 2 that I'm going to tell this evening, maybe that's what I'll do, is document 2 stories at a time. It feels better that way. So story number 2 is one of my middle school friends. Yeah, we were pretty young. So I lived with my grandparents, and my grandparents were awesome. I had this one rule. I could go outside any time, day or night. I think I was 14, 15. I was 14 in this particular situation. So it's summertime. My grandparents had this really awesome rule. I could go outside any time, day or night, but I could only come back in once. I couldn't crawl through the window. I couldn't go through another door. It had to be the front door. And looking back, that is an awesome trust, you know. You are entrusted with this front door one time only thing. And so I never abused it. And, you know, I had a friend come over, and where we lived at that time was, it was pretty rural. You know, there's 7 miles from the actual city, and, well, town, they call it a city. I call it a place where sheep and goats get violated. And so here's what we do. We get this idea to go out and mess with traffic. And there was one thing that my grandfather always told me, and that was, ask yourself before you do anything stupid, who's going to get hurt and how bad? And that was always my motto, and it's worked out pretty well except for those few rare exceptions. Lots of them. So we wanted to go out and mess with cars going down the highway. It was like a holiday weekend, and it was warm, it was summer, and we go outside, it's night, and we just say, hey, why don't we moon cars? You know, that's harmless, right? You know, moon is when you take your ass and you pull it at the car. And so we're like, yeah, that's harmless. Let's do it. You know, let's show our ass. So we go out to the highway and we start shaking our ass at cars. You know, people are laughing, they're beeping their horn, they're really happy. I mean, nobody's having a bad time. And to hide our identity, we, you know, flipped our shirts up over our head and had our pants down. And we're doing this for far too long, and I'm peeking every once in a while to make sure the police aren't coming because, you know, when you're 14, that's pretty funny to shake your ass at cars. When you're an adult, that will put you on a sex offender registry. Just a little tidbit for you guys out there who go, hey, he's having fun, that'd be cool too. No. So here's what happened next. We're doing this far too long, maybe 10 minutes, something like this. And I look up and I see this car that had pulled over. And these guys, there's like 4 guys running, all out running, like they were running Black Friday morning for a sale on NASCAR shirts at Walmart. So I'm like, Tommy, run! And this kid Tommy's like, fun, fun, fun. And I'm like, no, motherfucker, run! And he's like, fun, fun, fun. And he's dancing with his shirt over his head so he can't see it. He can't see me. The cars are roaring by. And I'm like, I have to hit this kid with a handful of rocks. I hit him with a handful of rocks. And I played baseball, so I mean, I put the hammer down. You know, I gave him the old high-speed curve. Hit this kid with the rocks, and he's like, what the... And flips his shirt off. And now he's standing there like this, and he sees these 4 guys running at him. And realizes that they're going to beat him. So he runs out of his pants. He's also out of his shirt. So little naked Tommy runs into the woods. Woods are close to my house. But remember, we have a rule. I can only go in once. So Tommy's like, we run away from the guys. They take his clothes. Take his fucking clothes. Tommy's like, what are we going to do? I'm like, we just go in my bedroom. We're good, man. Change your clothes. You brought extra clothes. Everybody's happy. And we go to the door. And Tommy's like, no, man. He's like, go in, throw some clothes out the window. I was like, no, I respect my boundaries. I was given this freedom to sneak the fuck outside whenever I want, and I shall not abuse it for you, Tommy. And so finally I talk him into coming in. And it was a straight shot in the door. The door entered in kind of like this off chute of the kitchen. And then we had to go through the corner of the living room and bam, we're in my bedroom. So we open the door, and I'm like trying to sneak, and the door must have drawn moisture from the gods this day or something, because it's like, it sounded like a goat that had been hung up in something and impaled. And it's like, and the door comes open, and Tommy's cupping his nuts and, trying to hide. Don't want to think about it. We get about halfway through the kitchen. As we get through the kitchen, a fucking light kicks on, and it's my grandfather. Now I'm 14 years old. I've got my best friend naked in the kitchen. It's not a good scenario. I mean, there's not too many stories that you can make up on the fly of why you've got your best friend naked in the living room there. And he looks at me and he's like, "What's going on?" And at that moment, I realized that the hammer had come down, the jig was up, and I needed to tell the truth. So I tell the story word for word, as I've told you, detail for detail. We didn't want to hurt anybody. We were mooning cars. Tommy ran out of his pants. They took his pants. And I tell him detail for detail, and then I said, and that's what happened. With a very serious face, a man who never really cursed, great sense of humor, looked at me and said, "I don't know what the fuck's wrong with you kids today, but I hope you get your shit together," and flips the light off, and I squealed laughing. I can hear him, what I would like to think was fighting back laughter. This has been a fun story sharing experience with you. I'm glad I could share, and I'm glad you could listen. Until next time.